An Amish mother wakes at 4 in the morning to begin breakfast. By the time her family sits down to eat, 2 hours later, she has cooked 6 dishes entirely from scratch on a wood-burning stove. Here is exactly what those 2 hours look like from start to finish. Why 2 hours is not unusual. 2 hours of breakfast preparation is not considered excessive in an Amish household. It is considered normal. The family consists of a husband, a wife, and 8 to 12 children. The husband and older boys will spend the next 12 hours doing physical farm labor. The younger children will walk to school. A bowl of cold cereal does not fuel 12 hours of hauling hay, milking cows, and plowing fields. The Amish breakfast is large because the day demands it. 2 hours is the cost of feeding that many people entirely from scratch. Lighting the wood stove. The mother's first act every morning is lighting the wood stove before anyone else is awake. The kitchen is cold and dark. She opens the stove door and checks whether coals remain from the previous evening. If coals remain, she adds kindling and blows gently until the fire catches. If completely cold, she builds a fire from paper and dry kindling until the firebox burns steadily. Getting the stove to cooking temperature takes 20 to 30 minutes. While it heats, the mother is already working. She fills the coffee pot and sets it on the back of the stove. She retrieves potatoes from the cellar. She assembles pancake batter ingredients. She begins the mental choreography of managing 6 dishes simultaneously on a stove with only 2 or 3 usable cooking surfaces. Every position matters. Heaviest pans go over the hottest areas above the firebox. Lighter preparations go toward the cooler edges. Fresh eggs and morning milking. While the stove heats, the older boys are already in the barn. By 5 in the morning, the first bucket of warm, fresh milk comes into the kitchen. The mother uses some for the pancake batter. The rest goes to the cellar. Eggs come from the family's own chickens. One of the younger daughters collects them at first light. A family keeping 30 to 40 hens collects 20 to 30 eggs each morning. The mother cracks them directly into a bowl as needed. No measuring, no recipe card. She has made this breakfast hundreds of times. Her hands know the quantities before her mind calculates them. Making scrapple the night before. Scrapple is one of the most traditional Amish breakfast foods and cannot be made quickly in the morning. It requires preparation the night before. Scrapple is made from pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices cooked into a thick porridge and poured into a loaf pan to solidify overnight. The head meat, liver, and scraps trimmed from larger cuts are simmered until the meat falls from the bone. The broth is strained and cornmeal stirred in gradually until the mixture thickens. Salt, pepper, sage, and thyme are added. By morning, it has set into firm slices. The mother fries them in a cast iron skillet greased with lard until a dark brown crust forms on each side. It smells of sage and pork fat and cornmeal. It is one of the smells Amish children associate with home for the rest of their lives. Fried potatoes from the cellar. Potatoes come from the family's own root cellar where hundreds of pounds stored in the fall wait through winter. The potatoes are either sliced thin for pan frying or grated raw for hash browns. Sliced potatoes go into the cast iron skillet with lard or butter and cook slowly until golden and tender, seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes onion. Raw grated potatoes for hash browns are squeezed dry in a cloth before hitting the hot pan. Wet potatoes steam rather than brown. The mother takes the extra 30 seconds to wring the moisture out because the difference in texture is significant. A properly fried hash brown is crisp outside and tender inside. The potatoes take 20 to 30 minutes and require attention. They must be turned at the right moment and the heat managed so they brown without burning. Pancakes from scratch batter. Amish pancake batter is made from scratch every morning from flour, eggs, milk, baking soda, salt, and sugar measured by eye and stirred by hand. The mother uses fresh buttermilk when available or whole milk from the morning milking. The batter is stirred only until the dry ingredients are incorporated. Overmixing develops gluten and produces tough pancakes. The batter rests while the griddle heats. A cast iron griddle laid across 2 burners holds enough batter for 4 or 5 large pancakes at a time. For a family of 12, the mother makes multiple rounds. She watches for bubbles to form across the surface before flipping. Each pancake takes approximately 3 minutes per side. Finished pancakes stack on a plate near the warm edge of the stove where they stay hot until the family sits down. Homemade bread already baked. The bread on the Amish breakfast table was not baked this morning. It was baked yesterday or the day before. Amish mothers bake bread 2 or 3 times per week in large batches. A single baking session produces 6 to 8 loaves. Those loaves sit on the kitchen counter wrapped in cloth and are consumed over the following days. By the time a loaf reaches the breakfast table, it may be a day old. It is not stale. Homemade bread made without preservatives or dough conditioners goes stale faster than commercial bread, but a day-old loaf at room temperature is still far superior to anything from a grocery store. The mother slices the bread at the table. Thick slices, the kind that hold up under a generous spread of homemade butter and the weight of a spoonful of jam or apple butter from the cellar. The butter on the Amish breakfast table was churned at home from the family's own cream. The jam was made last summer from fruit grown in the family garden. The bread was baked from flour ground from wheat stored in the cellar. Almost nothing on the Amish breakfast table came from a store. Everything was produced, preserved, or prepared by the family's own hands from ingredients they grew or raised themselves. Coffee and coffee soup. Coffee is essential at the Amish breakfast table. The large enamel coffee pot has been sitting on the back of the wood stove since 4 in the morning. By 6, it is brewed into a dark, strong liquid that fills the kitchen with the smell that signals breakfast is nearly ready. Every adult and older teenager drinks coffee. It is served plain or with fresh cream from the morning milking. Some families add a small amount of sugar. The coffee is strong because it was brewed slowly over low heat for 2 hours rather than pushed through quickly by a modern coffee maker. Beyond regular coffee, many Amish families serve something called coffee soup to young children. Coffee soup is warm milk with a small amount of coffee stirred in, poured over pieces of torn homemade bread in a bowl. The bread absorbs the warm coffee milk and becomes soft and filling. Children eat it with a spoon. It sounds unusual, but to Amish children who grew up eating it, coffee soup is as normal and comforting as any other breakfast food. It provides warmth, calories, and the faint flavor of coffee that children enjoy without the full strength that adults prefer. The coffee pot stays on the stove throughout the meal and is refilled as needed. No one at the Amish breakfast table goes without a hot drink. Setting the table for 12. While the food cooks, the oldest daughter sets the table. In a household with 12 people, this is not a small task. 12 plates, 12 cups, 12 sets of silverware. The large family table dominates the kitchen or dining room. It was built by the father or grandfather from hardwood, and it has sat in the same room for decades. The table is set simply. No placemats, no centerpiece, no decorative elements. Plates go down, cups go beside them. Silverware is laid in order. A large pitcher of fresh cold milk from the morning milking goes in the center of the table alongside the butter dish, the jam jar, and the maple syrup container. If the family has fresh fruit from the cellar, a bowl goes on the table. Everything is placed efficiently by a daughter who has set this table hundreds of times and knows exactly where each item belongs without thinking about it. By 5:50, the table is set. The food is nearly ready. The smell of scrapple and fried potatoes and coffee and fresh pancakes fills every room of the house. The younger children begin appearing at the kitchen doorway. The father and older boys come in from the barn smelling of animals and cold morning air. They wash their hands at the kitchen sink. They take their places. The family is assembled. The oldest daughter's role in this moment is not incidental. She has been setting this table since she was tall enough to reach the counter. She knows which cup belongs to which sibling. She knows her father prefers his plate on the left side of his seat. She knows the younger children need their cups placed closer to the center of the table where they are less likely to be knocked off the edge. These details were never formally taught. They were absorbed through years of daily repetition at the side of her mother. By the time she sets this table as a 16-year-old, she does it with the efficiency and quiet authority of someone who has internalized every detail of the household routine. When she eventually leaves this home to run a household of her own, she will set that table the same way, because this is the only way she has ever known. And the table she sets in her own home will feel like home to her children the same way this one feels like home to her. 20 minutes, and it is gone. The family sits down. The father leads a brief, silent prayer. Every head bows. Every hand rests on the table. The silence lasts 30 seconds. When the father raises his head, the meal begins. What follows is 20 minutes of efficient, focused eating. Amish meals are not lingering social occasions except on Sundays and special gatherings. Weekday breakfasts are fuel. The family eats quickly because the day's work is already waiting. The scrapple disappears from the platter. The fried potatoes go next. The pancakes are eaten in stacks with maple syrup poured generously. The bread basket empties as people tear off pieces and spread them with butter and jam. The coffee pot makes 2 full circuits of the table. The children drink their coffee soup and their cold milk. In 20 minutes, the food that took 2 hours to prepare is gone. The plates are cleared. The father and older boys return to the barn. The younger children gather their things for school. The mother and older daughters begin washing the dishes. The kitchen that smelled of cooking for 2 hours now smells of soap and hot water. By 7 o'clock, the breakfast is over. The wood stove is banked down to a slow burn that will hold until the midday meal requires it again. The morning has barely begun. There are 11 more hours of work ahead. The 2 hours spent preparing breakfast were not excessive. They were exactly sufficient. And tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, the mother will light the stove again and begin the same process from the beginning. What the 20-minute meal cannot capture is what it represents. The 2 hours of preparation are not just about food. They are the mother's daily act of provision for every person at that table. She rose before anyone else. She worked in a cold, dark kitchen while her family slept. She managed 6 dishes simultaneously on a wood stove that requires constant attention. She did all of this without being asked and without expecting acknowledgement. The family eats without commenting on the effort. They do not need to comment. Everyone at that table knows what went into the meal they are consuming in 20 minutes. The youngest children know because they watched their mother work. The older daughters know because they helped. The father knows because he married a woman who has done this every morning of their married life. The silence before the meal is not just a prayer. It is a moment of collective recognition of what was given so that everyone at that table could start the day fed, warmed, and ready for whatever the next 12 hours will demand. The Amish breakfast that takes 2 hours to prepare every morning is not an elaborate production designed to impress anyone. It is a practical response to the demands of a day that begins before sunrise and ends after dark for a family of 12 doing physical labor on a working farm. The wood stove must be lit 30 minutes before any cooking begins. The eggs must be collected and the milk must come in from the barn. The scrapple was prepared the night before but still requires careful frying. The potatoes must be retrieved from the cellar, sliced and cooked slowly until properly browned. The pancake batter must be mixed from scratch and cooked in rounds on a cast iron griddle. The bread was baked 2 days ago but must be sliced and set out alongside the butter churned from the family's own cream and the jam preserved from last summer's garden. The coffee has been brewing since 4 in the morning. The table must be set for 12. All of it happens between 4 and 6 in the morning by a woman who has been doing it every weekday of her adult life. No coffee maker, no toaster, no microwave, no pre-made anything. Just a wood stove, a cast iron skillet, ingredients produced by the family's own land and animals, and 2 hours of skilled continuous labor. The family eats for 20 minutes. The dishes are washed. The kitchen is clean. The day continues. And the whole process begins again tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, because that is what it takes to feed a family that works the way Amish families work, every single day. Without exception, without complaint, without a shortcut in sight.